Welcome back to the channel, guys. Hope you guys are all having a wonderful weekend. I wanted to make a quick video on battery life when it comes to mods. What's the best way that we can measure this? I want to try to explain it in layman's terms. Basically, yesterday I made a video on the iStick QC, and I really only explained it halfway. I was talking about how they shouldn't call it a 5,000 mAh mod because the batteries are running in series and there's probably 1,600 or so mAh batteries in there. You can't add up the mAh and what have you. All I really did though in that video was just confuse a lot of people, and it was a disservice to the viewers and it was a disservice to eLeaf. eLeaf I haven't talked to since I made that video, so they didn't say, Matt, you need to clarify. I just felt like even right after I uploaded that video, I didn't explain that very well, and I should have gone more in depth about how we should measure the battery life. I mean, that's really what you guys all care about, right? How long will this mod last me compared to this mod, right? It's a measurement. Now, the industry standard in vaping and in basically all of electronics is milliamp hours, mAh, right? Or you can call it amp hours, which is the mAh divided by 1,000, okay? But that really only tells us half the story. Milliamp hours is a good way to compare two mods or two batteries if they both have the same voltage. So for example, here I have a 3.7 volt Samsung 18650 and it's 2,500 milliamp hours. Here I have a 3.7 volt 18650 made by MXJO and they're saying it's 3,000 milliamp hours. If both of these measurements are correct, which who knows if they are with the MXGO battery. I don't think they really are, but let's just say they are for this video. This would have more battery life. They both have the same voltage. They both have 3.7 volts, right? And so the mAh is comparable between the two. Now, when you take batteries that have different voltages, the mAh isn't comparable between the two. So for example, with two batteries running in series, so let's say these two, the mAh doesn't change from one, right? If these two batteries are running in series, it's still considered 3,000 milliamp hours, even though you now have two batteries. But the watt hours changes, and the measurement of watt hours is really what tells us more about battery life when it comes to vaping between the two. So the amps don't change on these. The voltage does change though. It goes up, you double the voltage. 3.7 volts times 2 is what? 7.4, right? So if there are three batteries running in series, disregard that this is a different branded battery, I wouldn't do that, but then it would be 11.1 volts, right? Now that the voltage has changed in this, we can't compare the mAh, even though the mAh hasn't changed. So the way to figure out your watt hours is to take your voltage times your amp hours, okay? Like I said, all amp hours is your mAh divided by 1,000. So let's say yesterday I said each one of these batteries was probably 1,600 mAh, okay? And there were three of them. And the mAh doesn't change, but the watt hours does change. Okay, so you are going to have more battery life than a normal single cell 1,600 mAh. So you would take 11.1 volts times 1.6 amp hours, because remember we divide milliamp hours by 1,000, and that gives us 17.76 watt hours, okay? So now let's say these same batteries were running in parallel. Now, if they're running in parallel, then you do triple the mAh. There's three batteries. Each one of them is 1,600 mAh. So you take that 1,600 mAh times 3 and you end up with 4,800 mAh. But the voltage stays the same in parallel, remember? So you would take 3.7 times 4.8 amp hours, because we're taking 4,800 and dividing it by 1,000, remember, to get our amp hours. And again, you would end up with 17.76 watt hours. So to make that easier to explain, basically these 1,600 mAh batteries are equivalent to a 4800 mAh battery as far as battery life if you're using the same wattage on both. So these companies that say, hey, this has 5000 mAh battery life, it might not technically be true, but they're explaining it so that you can compare it to other devices you have and the battery life on those devices. And that way it is true because they would have the same watt hours. I know that this shit gets confusing, guys. Watt hours is really the correct way to measure capacity. Milliamp hours only measures basically your current, but not the energy. I think that's the way people explain it. So to dial this down, again, these 3 batteries, if they were running in series and you were using them with the same atomizer at 100 watts, it would have the exact same battery life as if these 3 batteries were running in parallel with the same atomizer and the same watts, okay? The reason that a lot of these manufacturers are running things in series is because they need that extra voltage to be able to get that power out of it. So like with an RX 200, they need 3 cells, 3 batteries, which would give you that 11.1 volts. They need that in order to give you that 200 watts on a, fairly low ohm atomizer. There's some fairly easy articles online that kind of explains this. I hope that I'm doing it justice for you guys. Now, I did talk to Battery Mooch last night because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't wrong in my way of thinking. And he said, yes, basically the watt hours would be the same on whether or not these were running in parallel or in series, okay? But he did say there can sometimes be some variables in how it's regulated, how the device itself is regulating the voltage and whatnot. So there can be some variables there, but a good rule of thumb is that if everything else is the same, the watt hours on these 3 batteries would be the same whether they're running in parallel or whether they're running in series. So theoretically, they should last you about the same amount of vaping time. And so like I said, the reason we see manufacturers not really doing the math correctly, but they're not being deceptive, is because if they start saying on packaging, oh, this has 3 1600 mAh cells running in series, people are just going to see that 1600 mAh and they're going to be like, oh, that mAh doesn't have very good battery life. But they don't understand that with those 3 cells, you end up getting about the same amount of watt hours that would be equivalent to 4800, 5000 mAh. So it's not necessarily like they're trying to deceive you and say, hey, this mod has a bunch of battery life when it doesn't. They're trying to explain it in a way that us as vapors understand because we've been going by mAh for so long. So I hope this all makes sense, guys. There's some things that I could dive even deeper into that are even more mind-blowing, and I'll just end up confusing myself. If you are really interested in batteries and whatnot when it comes to vaping, like I've said in other videos, you really should follow Battery Mooch's Facebook page. I will put a link in the description below for that. Make sure to check him out, and he's great at explaining things too, better than I am. And I know that there's going to be people out there that know way more than me, and they're going to say, you didn't explain this deep enough or that deep enough, but I really wanted to make this as simple as possible so people didn't get confused by what I said yesterday. Let me know what you guys think. Go ahead and leave a comment down below. Hope you guys all have a wonderful rest of your weekend. That about wraps it up. Until next time, thanks for watching. Suck my mud.